Hello friends, this is the first ever lecture of the security scan series. The first topic of discussion is security fronts and evolution. The idea here is to first understand what is a security front, who constructs the security front, what is the security front all about, why does it matter? Let's first try to understand that. When we talk of the word security front, a security front is basically a theater. It's a theater that acts as a threat to the country. A security front, which is a theater which acts as a threat to the country, is a threat to the people of the country. So thereby, a security front matters because it affects not only the sovereignty of the state, it matters because it also affects the well-being and existence of the people of a country. Now, when we talk about the security front, the next question that arises, friends, is who constructs this security front? With respect to India, the construction of a security front is done by a body known as the Indian intelligence community. There is no official definition of what constitutes the Indian intelligence community. But we know that there are some actors who are participants of this Indian intelligence community. Before I explain you those actors, I want you to understand yet another important thing, and that is that the Indian intelligence community is also called as the strategic community, or sometimes the strategic decision makers of the country. Either of the terms may be put to use, and you may hear any of these terms in the news. Don't be surprised, they all mean the same thing. But speaking purely from the security context, the word better to be used is the Indian intelligence community. In foreign policy debates, we use the term strategic community. It may not be wrong. Even here it may not be wrong. But when you are writing an answer of security issues, preferably use this term. Now, what constitutes this Indian intelligence community or the strategic community? It's important to understand, friends, that firstly, the Indian intelligence community is a mixture of not only the political actors, but also the official actors. There are 4 important political actors in the strategic community or the intelligence community of India. The first, at the apex or at the topmost of this structure, is the Prime Minister of the country, who plays the most important role in providing decisive leadership and strategic guidance to the entire country's security setup. The Prime Minister is also assisted by the Home Minister as yet another important member at the political level, the Defense Minister, and the Minister of External Affairs. So the Prime Minister, Home Minister, Defense Minister, and the Minister of External Affairs together constitute the political part of the Indian intelligence community. Apart from that, there are certain official elements, as I told you. The first and foremost official element comes from the armed forces. Now, when we talk of the official element, there's another thing I want you to understand and remember, that at this level, we don't only have one specific group of actors, but multiple groups of actors. And that is why in security terminology, we call these actors as silos, S-I-L-O-S, silos. So that's why one of the silo is of the armed forces. In the armed forces, 3 people matter the most: the Chief of the Indian Army or the Army Staff, COAS, the Chief of the Air Staff, and the Chief of the Naval Staff. These 3 people collectively constitute one silo of the armed forces. The second silo is made up of the intelligence agencies, of which at the time of 1947, when this Indian intelligence community was conceptualized, created, established, we had at the intelligence silo level only one agency, and that was the Intelligence Bureau. The Intelligence Bureau which was created by the British, continued as an agency by the post-independent colonial India, was responsible in 1947 not only for domestic intelligence but also external intelligence. This is the reason why a point may have come to your mind that when I talked about the armed forces silo, why did I not mention about the Chief of Defence Staff? Let's not forget, I am talking about the Indian intelligence community as it existed in 1947. The Chief of Defence Staff is a post that has been created now. We'll talk about that in a later video. But we are talking about those three core actors of the armed forces at that time. Similarly, when I talk about the Intelligence Bureau, it was an agency created by the British. It was continued as an agency by the post-independent India. In 1947, Intelligence Bureau was not only responsible for domestic intelligence, but also was responsible for the external intelligence. It is only in 1968 that the external intelligence part of the Intelligence Bureau was taken away from it and given to a new agency called the Research and Analysis Wing, or the RNAW, as it exists today. We'll talk about that again in a separate video. But at that time, the intelligence silo was made up of the IB, or the Intelligence Bureau. That constituted the second silo. The third silo at that time that became a part of the Indian intelligence community was basically the police. And when we talk about the word police, it not only included the central armed police, but also at the same time the state police. There was a flow of intelligence, flow of information between the state and the center, of the information of the law and order, everything, that enabled not only the center to remain alert about the potential threats at the state level, but also enabled the states to understand the threats that may arise from the central level or at the national level, which may have underpinnings on the states. So there was a collective ecosystem that was made. And that ecosystem together was called the Indian intelligence community. It is the job of the Indian intelligence community to perceive the threats, identify the threats, establish strategies to mitigate the threats. The beauty is that, friends, when we became independent, we realized one thing, that majority of the threats to the security of India would accrue from the neighbors of India. Broadly speaking, we try to divide the neighbors into two broad groups. One group consists of states like China, Bhutan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. You might be surprised. Why is China along with Bhutan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka? There's a reason. And the reason is, these were the states where we knew that they would display predictable behaviors. Surprised about China, right? That how could China display predictable behavior? Yes. We always stated that these states displayed predictable behaviors because these states had a past history. History matters. When you know the past of a state, on the basis of the knowledge of the past, you can not only predict the present behavior of the state, but also the future behavior of what the state is going to display. We knew that China is a civilizational player. We knew about its past. And we knew on the basis of the Chinese past, what behavior is China likely to display. That's a separate matter, that we perceived China as a predictable player and it displayed unpredictable behavior. But at least we knew that as a civilizational player, we could predict its behavior. We went wrong in our prediction. That's a separate debate for a probably separate video. But these are states that had a predictable history. They had a predictable past. And based on that, we knew that these states are going to display this behavior. Now look at these two states, Myanmar and Pakistan. When you look at Pakistan and Myanmar, I don't want to talk much about Myanmar. The Myanmar is made up of Burmese people. The Burmese, who are they? Are they Mongoloid stock people? No, they are not Mongoloid stock people. Who are Burmese? The Burmese are Kshatriyas, belonging to the Indo-Gangetic plain. They migrated from there to Burma, indigenous people. Went to a different land, were neighbors of Cambodia, Laos, we never knew what kind of behavior are they going to display when they are there. We brand them into the unpredictable category. We were yet to understand what kind of behavior are these people likely to display. We never knew about that. But look at the first one, the Pakistanis. Pakistan was always an idea. It was never a territory. And the beauty is that the territory itself was conceived as an idea. We branded Pakistan into the unpredictable category because we never knew how this idea, which now became a state, is going to have implications on our security. So one thing became very clear, that at the beginning of this juncture of India's independence journey, we had the states divided into two categories, predictable and unpredictable from the security perspective. And when we brand a state in the predictable category, do not forget that this branding of the state on a predictable category is based on the understanding of the historical past of the state. We had a history for China, we had a history for Bhutan and Nepal, we had a history for Sri Lankans, going back all the way to the epic of Ramayana, Hanuman being the India's first diplomat, visiting Sri Lanka. So we brand them into the predictable category, that these are predictable theaters, which we know that they are going to have a predictable behavior, but yet may impinge upon our security. We went wrong at the case of China. Separate debate. Unpredictable. We never knew how will Myanmar behave. We never knew how will Pakistan behave. Because Pakistan was an idea that became a state. And till today we will see Pakistan struggled to form an identity of its own. And that is why the Nazariya-e-Pakistan or the identity of Pakistan is not defined. And when you do not have a defined identity, then obviously you are unable to exist as a stable state, which is the case of Pakistan today, which is the case of Myanmar today. Democracy, military, no clarity. Why democracy is suppressed, military has an upper hand, Kshatriya origin. Don't forget that. So this is where we need to understand one thing, that this is how we conceptualized these fronts. And this is how these fronts acted as potential threats on us. We will have a discussion on each front separately in a separate video. Thank you.